Now, last week we discussed cash flow discounting. The week before we did compounding. Right? We discussed about compounding factors, discounting factors, and all that. Right? So that forms the basis of most of your future finance studies. Right? As you do more and more complicated and advanced exams, it is a must that you know your discounting and compounding processes, right? That is crucial. It will form, as I said last week, it will form about 50% of your future advanced studies on finance, right? So if you master it, then what you study in the future is going to be very easy. Any questions on that before we move on? Because if you have any doubts, best get clarified now itself. Okay. So in the absence of any questions, can you all see the slides, by the way?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so today's session is on capital budgeting. Now, what is capital and what is budgeting? What do you mean by capital?
Owner's equity?
Very good. Whatever the money that is pumped in by owners and what belongs to the owner is called capital, right? So it comes actually from people who owns the company or runs the company, owns the company actually. So what is the difference between, sorry, that's one form of capital, right? Equity is one form of capital. What else? There is another form of capital. Two forms of capital. One is equity, other one is, yeah, your answer is correct. Equity is one form of capital. So it's called equity capital that is pumped by the owners. The other form of capital is called
Borrowed capital.
a borrowed capital, which is called
Debt capital.
Capital.
debt capital. Yes, good, very good. So there are two forms of capital, debt capital as well as equity capital. So which is good? Debt is good or equity is good?
Debt?
Reason?
Equity?
Equity.
Uh-huh. Why do you say equity is good and why do you say debt is good? And
Because,
one of you said both debt and equity is good.
because equity is his own money.
Okay.
He doesn't have to pay.
Yeah.
All goes to his pocket.
Okay. So it's like my car, my petrol.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Your point is very valid. You make a very strong point. So what you mean is, if an owner pumps his own money into the business, right? He gets ownership of whatever that happens to the business, no? Whether it's a profit or a loss, it's his baby. Right? So if the company makes profits, he will decide what to do with the profit, whether he takes the profit out or whether he reinvests the profit in his capital. But if it's debt, what is the difference? If capital has been pumped in the form of debt, Yeah,
It's a liability.
it is a liability, meaning periodically he will have to service the debt, isn't it? Now, so debt servicing means it can contain things like coupon payments or interest payments periodically, maybe monthly, quarterly, right, or semi-annual, annual. In certain given frequencies, you will have to service the interest as well as the capital has to be repaid at some point in the future. That's the difference between debt and equity. It's something that we learned in grade 2. No, the difference between debt and equity. What are the differences between debt and equity? Yeah. We just mentioned one point. Equity, servicing equity is not a must, right? If you want, you can give a return to the equity holders, but if you don't wish to do so, you need not. It's not compulsory. Now, what is the return that equity holders get? If you own equity, what is your return called?
Profit.
Okay. Yeah. So if a company makes a profit, can the equity holder, right, equity investor claim the entire amount of profit? So if you make 100 billion rupee of profit and you own shares of John Keels, right? They made 1.5 billion or 2 billion this quarter. So can you go to John Keels and ask for the 2 billion? Hmm?
Dividends?
Yes, very good. Dividends. Which means out of the profits, the company will, right, they make a, let's say, 2 billion profit. So out of the 2 billion profit, they will decide to pay 50% as dividends. 1 billion will be distributed equally amongst all shareholders. And that's called dividends. Now that's very good. And that's one form of return that equity investors get. They get dividends. They will be paid dividends. What is the other form of return? Dividends as well as, now you buy John Keys, let's say 135, right? You bought John Keys. Then if the price goes to 150, you make a profit or a loss.
Shares.
Oh, yeah, that's called capital gains. Right? You buy shares of John Keys, and if the price goes up, you make a capital gain. Okay, so you get dividends as well as capital gains. Right? So paying dividends is not compulsory. The company can decide whether to pay or whether not to pay. It's not compulsory. If they want, they can pay. If they don't want, they need not pay. And some of the big companies like Amazon does not pay any dividends. Right? Even in Sri Lanka, some of the number one market cap is Amazon, Google. They don't pay dividends. Sri Lanka, the number one market cap. Anyone? Any idea? What is the company in Sri Lanka? What is the largest market cap company in Sri Lanka?
JKOH,
Pardon?
John Keels,
No, it used to be John Keats, not anymore.
LLC.
Yeah, LOLC. So LOLC doesn't pay dividends. That's in line with some of the biggest market capitalized companies in the, some of the companies with the biggest market capitalizations in the world, like Google and Amazon. They don't pay dividends. And so some of the big companies don't pay dividends, whereas some other companies pay dividends. So which means it's not compulsory that you pay dividends, right? If the company wants, it can pay dividends. Otherwise, it need not pay dividends. So if a company does not pay dividends, that dividend, whatever would have been paid out, can be retained within the company, and that money also can be used for its growth. Yeah, which is also good, because then the only return that shareholders get will be capital gains. Now in Sri Lanka, for Sri Lankans getting capital gains, there are two advantages. One is capital gains will not be taxed, whereas dividends are taxed. Right? It's subject to taxes, right? Yeah. So the other thing is companies have enough money for growth. They do. Now, if you pay dividends and if you want more money to grow, then you have to do two things. Either you have to issue more equity capital or debt capital. Right? So both are not easy. Issuing equity or debt is not a very easy exercise. You have to go through lots of policies and procedures. If you are a listed company, you need to shareholder approval, then you need to find a manager to the issue. Costly affair, it takes time. You have to get regulatory approvals. Takes a lot of time and money. Right? So if you retain the dividends, there itself you are holding on to a rich capital base, which you can invest and give even higher returns to your shareholders. So that is what most of the some of the companies in Sri Lanka as well as globally will do. Right? They go for capital gains and they don't focus really on dividends. Right? So the dividend income they might use to acquire other companies. So they go for organic growth as well as inorganic growth through acquisitions, which is a pretty good strategy. Right? That's what some of the most aggressive companies do. Yeah, so paying dividends is not compulsory. Yeah, but let's say capital was raised through debt. Right? You instead of equity capital, a company raised debt capital. Then what happens? Now, if a company issues debentures, for example, they are supposed to pay what for debenture holders? What are the forms of return for debenture holders? Forms of return for equity holders are, equity investors are dividends and capital gains. And if you have invested in debt investors, what are the returns? Yeah,
interest,
interest. Yeah, you have to pay interest. So if you invest in debt, does it mean you will not make capital gains? You cannot make capital gains. Remember, equity investors will get dividends as well as capital gains. Whereas debt investors, one is they get interest, but does it mean they will not get capital gains?
capital gain by way of shares.
Okay, what you mean is if the debenture is a convertible debenture, right? That means when the debenture matures, the investor will not get his money back, but instead he will get shares. That's called a convertible debenture. If that is the case, then there is an opportunity to sell the share and make money. Yeah, very good point. Huh? So that is a possibility. But if it's a plain vanilla debenture, normal debenture, the answer is even if it's a normal debenture, there are opportunities for capital gains. How? Now, let's say, for example, a company issues a 10-year debenture, right, at a rate, let's say, of 10%. Okay. Then if you invest in this debenture for the next 10 years, your rate is fixed at 10%. Now, my question is, you will make capital gains if market interest rates increase or if market interest rates drop. When will you make capital gains?
Interest rate drops.
Very good. When interest rates drop, right? Meaning if you have invested for 10 years at a rate of 10% and within, let's say, 2 months, interest rate all of a sudden dropped to 5%, right? So after 2 months, if you were to invest, you might end up investing at a rate of 5%, whereas you have already invested at a rate of 10%. Which one is better, to have invested at 10% or at 5%? Yeah. What do you think is best, to have invested at a higher rate or at a lower rate?
Higher rate.
Obviously a higher rate, right? Which means if you have invested at a higher rate and if interest rates drop, then you make capital gains. Okay, so remember, equity investors are entitled for dividends as well as capital gains, whereas debt investors are entitled for interest and as well as capital gains, right? So capital gains are applicable in both instances. Right? So the dividend, what is paid to equity investors is called dividends. What is paid to debt holders are called interest. Right. Now we discussed that dividends is not a must, but paying interest is a must or not. It is a must. Yeah. Because if a company fails to pay interest, fails to pay interest, they can get sued. But if they fail to pay dividends, that doesn't matter, right? Okay, so not paying dividends, not paying interest is a reason for default, right? If they don't pay interest, that means they have defaulted. So if they have defaulted, then they can be liquidated, right? Investors can file for bankruptcy and a company can get liquidated if they don't pay debenture interest or interest on their loans. But not paying dividends does not lead to default. Understood? Any questions so far? No questions? Right. This we discussed earlier also. The other thing is if you invest in equity, you own the company, whereas if you invest in debt, you don't own the company. But what is the main difference between debt and equity? The main difference. What do you think is the main difference between debt and equity? The main difference is
Debt capital reflects on obligation to pay the debt back.
okay, debt capital is an obligation to pay debt back. Yes, yes, that's from the point of view of the borrower, right? So if you have raised funds through debt, it is compulsory that you repay it. Whereas if you have raised funds through equity, you don't have to settle equity. There is no maturity for equity. It runs into perpetuity until the companies wind up. You don't have to repay your equity investors unless a company buys back shares. Right? Share buyback can happen, but unless that happens, there is no need to redeem equity. Then the most important difference between debt and equity. Now, if funds are raised through debt, who takes the risk of the investment?
Ownership.
Yeah, ownership. Right. So if you're invested in equity, you own the company. But if you're invested in debt, you do not own the company. If funds have been raised, my question is if funds have been raised through a debt, who takes the risk of performance of an investment or risk of performance of a project?
Shareholders.
Um, in other words, yes, shareholders, right? If funds have been raised through debt, it's compulsory that you pay interest now. You service the debt. But if you don't have enough inflows from the project, right, you still have to keep servicing your debt, meaning the company or the borrower takes the risk, right? So eventually the borrower is owned by shareholders. So the shareholder takes the risk if funds are raised through debt, right? So very good. And if funds are raised through equity, still it is the shareholder who takes the risk, right? Because if the company does not perform, if the project is not successful, still the shareholder will not get the return that he expected, right? So either way, it's shareholder who takes the higher risk. Meaning, if you invest in equity, you're taking a higher risk than if you are investing in debt, right? So the return to shareholders technically should be higher. Understood? Any questions up to now?
So you are saying that this equity is more riskier.
Yeah, equity is more riskier from the point of view of the investor. Right? Do you agree, Chamari? You don't?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. What do you think? Because if you're an equity investor, you're taking a higher risk than if you're giving a loan. Okay. Because what is left for equity investors is only the residual assets of a company or the residual cash flows. Right. So you own only the residual income of an organization, nothing else. Agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah. Good question. Right. So that is capital. It can be debt capital or equity capital. The next area is budgeting. What do you mean by budgeting? How many of you have never done budgeting?
How to plan your funds.
How to plan your funds? Yes, very good. So how many of you have never done budgeting? Or how many of you have never done a budget? How many of you have done a budget?
Have done, sir.
Okay. Anyone who has not done? Purnima has never done budgeting. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Okay. Well, let me give you an example. Right. Let's say now when you travel to office, right? Maybe you're working from home, but let's assume you pre-COVID you've been traveling to office. So during that time, I mean, perhaps you may have forgotten also. No, about 2 years you were at home. No? Before COVID, if you remember the days that you good old days when we used to travel to office, how much money do you normally take to office? Do you carry about 20 million bucks with you? All your wealth you carry in your purse, or do you take about 50 million bucks to office every day? Yeah. Yeah, you don't carry about 50 million, 100 million bucks every day to office, no? Why? How much would you generally take to office? You might only take enough money to travel, perhaps enough money for lunch. Then after office, if you're having a booze, maybe enough money for a drink, right? That's it. So maybe you're traveling 100 rupees. For lunch, you take another 150. And for the booze, about 5,000, right? So 5,500 for a day. You don't take 20 million every day to office, just 5,500, including a booze. Why would you do that? Why not take 20 million every day to office?
Risk of carrying the money is high.
Yeah, risk of carrying the money is high. But if, let's say, well, if you are living in a very safe country like Singapore, then does that mean you will carry your entire wealth to office every day you go to office?
No.
No. Why?
We plan our expenses.
Exactly. Because you have done your budgeting. That is budgeting, nothing else. It's purely because you have done a budget, right? So you know exactly, not exactly, but you estimate that for traveling you will need only 100, for food you will need 200, and for your booze you need 5,000, right? So you keep a small cushion and you take 5,500 to office. Nothing else, right? So you have done a budget. And you also know how much of money you're getting for the month. Let's say, just throwing out numbers, 100,000 bucks a month, right? That's your monthly income. So out of the 100,000, then that's your inflow. Let's say that is the only source of income, right? I'm just throwing out numbers. That is the only source of income. Again, you do your monthly expenses for your bills. You have to pay 10,000. Then for the banking institute, you have to pay another 5,000, right? Then your food, you will be spending 5,000 for the month. Okay, traveling another 5,000. So that's about 25,000. And for your booze, you'll have 75,000. Then to go on a trip, you need another 10,000. So then you're short of money. So if you're short of money, you will then plan what to do about the shortage. How do you fund the shortage, right? You can't reduce on your booze. You can't reduce on your traveling. You can reduce on food. Maybe you can delay your payment to the institute. Okay, but that will not cover up your entire cost. How do you bridge the gap? Maybe you take a personal loan, or you use your credit card, right? Again, you have done your budgeting. Yeah. But you do your calculations, you work your numbers, then all of a sudden you find that you don't have a deficit, but you have a surplus. Then you'll be deciding what to do with this surplus. What can I do with the surplus? Right? All of a sudden I have a surplus. I was expecting maybe a negative balance, but looks like I will end up with a positive balance. If that is the case, where do I put the money? Do I put it in a bank? Do I buy shares? Or do I do I give it away for charity? Do I put it for some education purpose, right? So that is another planning process. That's also budgeting. Okay, so you do your budgets, you work your numbers, then you know whether you are going to be short of money or you are going to be surplus money. If you're short, you have one set of strategies. If you have surplus, you have another set of strategies. Okay, so that's what you can do. Meaning all of us have done our own budgets, consciously or unconsciously. Right? So I don't agree that none of us have ever done budgets. We have all done budgets. Each and every one of us have done budgets. Understood? So we are masters of budgets, isn't it? Masters. You can do a doctorate on budgets, PhD on budgets. Yeah. Meaning there is nothing new to learn about budgets. Only thing is you might not know the technical terms. Right? So it's all about a matter of getting the technical terms in place. Then you know your budgeting inside out. Clear? Any questions? Do you all agree or disagree? Good. Yeah. Sorry, someone had a question. Right. So now you know capital, right? Debt capital, equity capital, and you know budgeting. So my question is, why do you need to budget your capital? Why budget capital?
To measure the profitability, long-term profitability.
To measure the profitability, okay?
Because the capital is limited.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was expecting. Because capital is limited, right? You don't have an abundance of capital now, right? Because capital doesn't fall from the sky. You have to look for your capital, and the amount of capital you have is limited, right? You can't just burn it up. Okay? Capital is a limited resource. Remember in grade 2, we learned something called factors of production. What are the 4 factors?
Capital, labor,
Yeah. During my time, I think there were 4.
capital, labor, land, and entrepreneurship.
Very good. Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Yeah. I thought over a period of time, they have cut it down by 50%. 4 has reduced to 2. Sorry about that. So it's still 4. Land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. Very good. So we still remember what we learned in grade 2. And these factors of production are resources. Resources can be renewable or non-renewable, right? They can be limited or unlimited. Whereas capital is limited or unlimited. Yeah, capital is limited or unlimited?
Limited.
Unlimited.
Limited.
Capital is limited. You have only a certain amount of capital. You might be able to raise additional capital, but even if you after raising the additional capital, still it's limited, right? So it's a limited resource, which means if it's limited, if you run out of capital, it's going to be difficult to raise further capital. Right? Even if you raise further capital, you can still run out of capital. So it's a limited resource. If a resource is limited, should you use it efficiently or inefficiently?
Efficiently.
You need to use it as efficiently as you can. Okay, which is why capital budgeting is a must, because you need to use capital efficiently. If you are inefficient, then you're just going to burn up a lot of money. You can't afford to be inefficient. Clear? Any questions? No questions? Right. So this is what we are going to go through today. These are the concepts. Capital budgeting is about analyzing projects that may be profitable long-term and require large capital infusions. They can also be important for the future of an organization, right? By the way, let me just share an interesting slide which I came across recently. It's quite an old one, but in case you all have not seen it, let me just display it for you. Does anyone know who owns Tesla? Tesla Motors, who owns?
Elon Musk.
Very good. Yeah, Elon Musk owns Tesla, right? Just have a look at this. What do you all think? Now, this may not be applicable in Sri Lanka. Right? Sri Lanka, if you buy a car, the price does not fall, no? It goes up. These days, it has doubled within a period of 1 year. Less than 1 year, car prices have doubled. No? And mind you, these are not new cars. We are using second-hand cars, and the second-hand car prices have also doubled. Right? So rather than investing in equity, you might as well invest in second-hand cars. Your returns might be even better. Right? Now, if I just run through this, this is what would have happened if you had invested. Well, if you had, let's say there were two people, right? A and B. A was, let's say they had the same amount of money at their disposal, right? $77,000 each of them had. So A decided to buy a Tesla car. He was impressed by the performance and he bought a car, Tesla. $77,000 he paid. B didn't want a car. He thought he will go by bus. Right? He was happy to go by bus. So he bought a bus season ticket and traveled by bus. Right? Instead of using it on a car, he bought 11,390 shares of Tesla, spending $76,996. Right? Which means the cost of a share is how much at that time? About $6.76 in 2012. Right? So 8 years down the line, A's car, right? The car that was purchased by A is now worth $31,300. And he spent $77,000, bought a car, and the car price after 8 years is $31,300. But B, right, who thought he will not buy a car, but he will travel by bus and use that money to buy shares of Tesla, who purchased 11,390, would have ended up with a wealth of $6.6 million. Right? The same number of shares, which was worth $76,996 in 2012, will now be worth $6.6 million, meaning the price of Tesla has increased to $584.76, and that's more than 508. That's around $580 increased within a period of 8 years. Right? Huge increase. So a $76,000 or $77,000 investment will increase to $6.6 million. Okay. So these are the kind of decisions that you will make in life, which can change your life. Can change it. It will be a life-changing decision. Right? And in this case, buying a Tesla car against buying Tesla shares. Life-changing decision. The same thing can be used, if I'm not mistaken, for Coke, right? Something very similar. If you had bought a bottle of Coke and invested in a share of Coke within a period of 10 years, huge difference, right? So every decision you make in life will have a huge impact. Yeah. And the decision you have now taken to do your banking studies, right, is something similar. You have to make sure that it works for you. Your qualification works for you. Okay, so it has to be like investing in Tesla shares. You're investing in your future, your education. So if your investment of, let's say, $100,000, 10 years down the line drops to 50,000, it's not going to be worth it. Right? You have to make sure that your investment of 100,000 multiplies at least 100 times in 10 years. Well, sorry, 100,000 times is not enough, 1,000 times minimum, right? And your investment of 100,000 ends up being how much? 1,000 times about 100 million, right? That is what your target should be. Clear? Having said that, don't go after money only, right? You have to enjoy your life also. But remember, every decision you make is going to decide on your future. Understood?
So what if the share price goes down?
Yeah, that is the thing. Now, when you invest in shares, right, it's not like a one night stand. You can't expect share prices to increase overnight. When you invest in shares, it is for the long haul. Remember, shares don't have a maturity now. Now, if you invest in FD, it matures in 1 year, right? So your investment horizon is 1 year. But if you invest in shares, what do you think your investment horizon should be? Should it be short term or long term?
Long term, no?
It has to be long term, right? If you go for short term, you might be able to win sometimes, but usually you will lose, right? So that's why it's important to pick your stock and have faith in it. You have to be observant, have faith in it, and over a period of time, it will do well. Okay, but this theory, of course, does not apply to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, yeah, if you purchased a Tesla car, 10 years down the line, the price would increase by 1,000 times. Whereas if you had invested in banking, the price will increase by 10 times. Right? Doesn't make sense. But not to worry, your banking qualification or whatever qualification you get will always be of some use. Understood? So my advice to you is to finish your exams as soon as possible. And the first available opportunity you must finish. Now, last year there was only last 2020 there were no exams. IBSL did not conduct a single exam last year. There was one conducted this year, and hopefully there'll be another one for the year. Right, so we are back on track. Since no exams were conducted last year, and if there might be people amongst you, students amongst you, who had the chance of finishing off banking in 2019, you made a decision to postpone it by 2 years, by another 6 months. At 2019 September, if you could have finished, you may have thought, I'll take a small break and finish it off in March 2020, right? You would have, you probably are still straddled with this burden. You wouldn't have finished by now, right? For the decision that you made to postpone, perhaps you have extended your exam period by another 2 years minimum. Right? You will have to study the same thing, and you're stuck and straddled with the same old stuff. Okay, so never postpone exams. You need to finish as fast as possible. Take the first opportunity to complete them and put them behind you. Move on with life. Do something more challenging. You do it, more challenging exams. Right? Banking is good way to start, but you have to continue studies. Okay. So remember, you must not become fixed assets to the banking institute. Don't become a fixed asset. Clear? Any questions? By the way, something similar happened even with bitcoins, right? Bitcoins in 2010, 2009, 2010, it was $2 a Bitcoin. One Bitcoin was worth $2, right, in 2009. Today it is worth about $45,000 a Bitcoin. So imagine 10 years ago, if you had just spent, right, again, if you had an option to buy a pizza or buy a Bitcoin, 10 years ago, most of you would have preferred to buy the pizza and forget about a Bitcoin. So you will not invest in a Bitcoin, you'll buy pizza. But by any chance, if one of you had purchased a Bitcoin for $2, today imagine what a change your life would have been, right? How different your life would have been. Okay, so strange things happen in the world. It's very difficult today. Now, hindsight, yes, it's very easy to have told you all these stories, but practically it's very difficult, isn't it? Today, how would you know which share to invest in? Making that decision is tough, right? Right, so getting back to where we were. Steps in capital budgeting, right? You need to forecast cash inflows and outflows. It's like preparing a typical budget. You have to forecast your inflows as well as your outflows. How are you receiving funds and how on what are you going to spend? Then you need to assess the risk of cash flows. How likely are you to receive a certain cash flow? Or how likely is it that you may not receive the cash flow? What is the risk? What are the underlying risk factors? Estimate weighted average cost of capital. What do you mean by weighted average cost of capital? What do you mean by weighted average? Right. Let me ask you another question. Okay. Let's say you go to 3 different supermarkets, right? Muggles, Pico, and Kiehl's. Right? From Cargill's, you buy 10 mangoes. Let's say from Cargill's, you buy 10 mangoes at a price of 100. Then Apico, you buy 7 mangoes at a price of 150. And from Kiehl's, you buy 12 mangoes at a price of 75. Right? Same kind of mangoes. Now, what is your average cost of a mango? Average cost of a mango. How do you calculate? Can you all see the Excel sheet? Okay, so what is your average cost of a mango? Very good. How do you calculate? You multiply the two, right? You calculate how much you spend in total. 10 mangoes at 100 is 1000. 7 mangoes at 150 is 1. So the total spent is 2950. And you have purchased 29 mangoes. Meaning your average will be 11 rupees. How do you get 11 rupees? Don't you get 101? How did all of you get 11? Yeah, Marisha, you okay? Prabhat and Sandushi, how come you got 11?
Yeah, I thought about sir, 100. The quantity I bought 10 mangoes for 100 rupees.
Ah, yeah, that's what. Yeah, okay, you're right. 10 mangoes for 100. Okay, so that's correct.
No, not for each. Each one is 100.
Ah,
All 10 mangoes for 100 rupees.
okay, okay, understood. Yeah, this is price per mango. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. And yeah, okay. And Sandushi. Okay, okay. Yeah, right. Perhaps I should have been more specific. Yeah, so the average comes to 101.72. Clear? Any questions? So this is the average cost of a mango, 101.72. Right? Now let's say instead of cargills, it is your equity. Right? At 10%, you have raised 100 billion. Cost of equity is 10% and you have raised 100 billion. Then instead of Arpico, let's say it is your debenture at a cost of 7%, you have raised 150 billion. And instead of Keels, it is your bank loan at a rate of 12%, you have raised 75 billion. Okay, so you have raised a total of 325 billion, which will cost you 29.5 billion every year, correct? This will be your total cost. In equity, annually you're paying 10 billion, debentures annually you're paying 10.5 billion, and your bank loan annually you're paying 9 billion, meaning total cost of your capital is 29.5 billion. And you have total capital of 325 billion. Now your average will be the cost divided by the total amount you have raised. 9.08%. Understood? This is what is meant by your weighted average cost of capital.
So you divide the total cost divided by the amount, is it?
Yeah, yeah. It's the cost divided by the amount. No? The total cost as a percentage of the amount, isn't it? That's how you calculate your cost, no? Am I right?
Yes.
You get 9.08%. Clear? Any questions?
Clear, sir.
Okay. Any more questions? So this is what you mean by weighted average cost of capital. Okay. Now these are various forms of capital. This gives you the weighted average cost of your capital. No more questions? So you have to forecast your cash inflows and outflows, which is your budget. You need to assess the risk, estimate your weighted average cost of capital, then discount cash flows. Have you all heard of discounting cash flows? Never heard?
Relates to expected future cash flows.
Discounting means what? Future or present? You discount to calculate what? The future value or the present value?
Present value.
Yeah, present value. Isn't it? So present value calculations have you all done? Or you have never heard of them?
Done.
You have done, right? So some of you vaguely remember what we did last week, 7 days ago. Right? So usually your memory is there for 6 days, and on the 7th day you forget. So when you come for classes the week after, everything is forgotten. Some of you have never heard of cash flow discounting, but we did it last week. Okay, so there is nothing to do, new to learn. Okay, any questions on that? Right, independent and mutually exclusive. What does it mean? What is independent and what is mutually exclusive?
Independent means one project doesn't have any impact on other one.
Yeah,
Mutually exclusive means one project has an impact on other.
good,
Is it?
good. I'll explain using an example right now. Let's say before you got married, let us say you had a girlfriend. In the Western province. Does it mean you can't have another one in the Southern province? If you have one girlfriend in Western, can you not have another in the Southern province? Hmm? You can. Northern province, you can. Eastern, can. Central, can. North Central, can. Over, can. Each and every province, you can have one girlfriend. So having one girlfriend doesn't mean you can't have another. That is called independent, right? Having one girlfriend is independent from having another one. Or having one boyfriend is independent from having another boyfriend. You can have one boyfriend for every province. So even if there are interprovincial travel bans, it doesn't matter. You can still meet, right? That's called independent. Then what is mutually exclusive? Now, after you get married, can you have a wife in every province? Every province, a wife. You go to Jaffna, you have a wife. You go to Gaul, you have a wife. Right? You go to Colombo, you have a wife. Ampara, there is a wife. Polonnaru, there is a wife. Every province, a wife. Can you do that? You can't. Right? So having one wife means you can't have another. That's called mutually exclusive. Having one means you can't have another. Okay, so there is a difference. Independent and mutually exclusive. So independent means you can have as many as you want. Mutual exclusive, you can only have one. Understood the difference? Is that clear? Not clear? Very good. First one is payback period, right? It means how long it takes to recover your initial investment using cash flows that occur from the project. How long will it take for you to recover your initial investment? That is called payback. Right? So payback means how long it takes to recover the investment. Now, let's say, for example, for your wedding, let's say you spent 10 million bucks for your wedding. Right? It's a cost, no? The amount of money you spend on your wedding is a cost. Actually, it is sunk cost. Right? So let's say monthly your revenue or your income is 1 million bucks. Right? Sorry, I was trying to mute Judy, but it's not working. Okay, coming back to your wedding example, right? Let's say you spend 10 million bucks on your wedding and monthly your revenue is $1 million. How long will it take for you to recover your investment?
10 months.
Very good. You can recover the cost in 10 months. If your revenue monthly is 2 million,
5 months.
5 months. Right, sorry about that. Let's say you're getting married today. You're getting married today, so I put it as month 0, that means today. You're spending 10 million on your wedding, right? So after your wedding, your net cash flow, let's call it the cumulative cash flow, will be how much? After your wedding, immediately after your wedding, what is your cumulative cash flow? Now, wedding cost is what? Income or an expense?
Expense.
It's an expense, right? So expense I have put as negative, and your monthly income I have put as positive. After your wedding, your cumulative will be minus 10 million, correct? Agreed?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. After you get your next month's salary, what is the cumulative position? You are starting at minus 10, then you're getting your salary
Minus 8.
minus 8 million. Then the second month, you get another salary. A new
Minus
position,
6 million.
minus 6. Minus 6 means have you recovered your cost or not? Minus 6, does it mean you have
Not
recovered your,
recovered fully.
yeah, you haven't recovered it fully. Right. Third year, you are minus 4 million, then minus 2. And at the end of the fifth year, you would have recovered your investment, correct? Let's say end of the fifth month, you get a salary increase, right? So you're expecting $3 million to come. So at the end of the fifth month, at the end of the fourth month, sorry, at the end of the fourth month, you will be minus 2 million now, right? At the end of the fifth month, you will be plus 1 million, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, my question is, how long did it take for you to recover the investment?
Five months.
Yeah, 5 months. It's actually 4 months because the fourth month you were minus 2 million. At the end of the fifth month, you're plus 1 million. So you have recovered your investment somewhere between fourth and fifth month. Now, if you assume that your revenues come evenly during the month, you will be recovering it 4 months. And you're short of 2 million. Sorry, you're getting 3 million during the month. That means daily you're getting about 100,000 and you need to recover 2 million.
Months 20.
You're getting 3 million during the month. You're getting 2 million within the month, and for a day you're getting 100,000. It takes you 20 days, right? 4 months, 20 days. Isn't it? Understood? The actual payback is 4 months and 20 days. Okay. Understood? So your payback period is 4 months and 20 days. Isn't it? Did you all get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. So what you should understand is payback is the time it takes to recover your investment. But payback does not consider the cash flows you receive after your break-even period, right? So the 6th month, if you get 5 million, And the 7th month, if you do get 7 million, it doesn't matter. It only looks at cash flows up to the payback period. Right? It will only look at cash flows up to the payback period, not beyond that. Understood? So that is a shortcoming of payback. It doesn't consider cash flows after payback period. Right? So any questions? Shall we try this example? Can you all calculate the payback of this project? Okay, Rachel has a question. How come 20 days? Because you assume you receive the cash flows evenly throughout the month. You assume that cash flows come evenly. Right? So 3 million a month is about 100,000 rupees a day. And after the 4th month, you're short of 20 million. Sorry, 2 million. So to recover the 2 million, it takes you 20 days. So that's why 4 months. It's clear that it is 4 months, right? 4 months and 20 days. So after every day, if you are receiving 100,000 equally, after 20 days, you will recover the 2 million. Correct? Understood, Rachini? Yeah. Any more questions? So in this example, your current investment is right. In this case, it's given in years, not months. So year 0, that means today you're investing 100. It's minus 100 means an outflow for an investment. At the end of the first year, at the end of today, you're short of 100, minus 100. Then the first year you get plus 10. Second year you get 60. Third year you get 80. If you look at your cumulative cash flows, today you're short of 100. Then after the first year, you will be short of 90. And after the Second year, you will be short of 30. After the 30, you will be short of, sorry, you will not be short, you would have recovered, and you have a surplus of 50. Right? So what is your payback? Yeah.
So what is the second year cash flow?
Second
Second year cash flow, is it 30?
year cash flow given is 60. Right? Your second year, you get 60 now. Third year, you're getting 80.
This example is from the tute, no sir?
Example from the tute, yeah. Found it.
So is it 3 divided by 30?
Hold on. Which one? See, these are the cash flows, right? First year you have making an investment of 100. Then the first year you get an inflow of 10. Second year there is an inflow of 60. And third year there is an inflow of 80.
Okay, okay.
What do you say divided by? Which one?
Now the payback period, it says 2 plus 3 divided by 30.
Ah, yeah, don't worry about that. I'll explain that. Okay, so your payback is end of the second year, you're short now of 30. End of the third year, you have a surplus of 50, which means your payback is somewhere between the second year and the third year, right? It will be 2 years and months. You're short of 30. That year, you're getting 50. It's about 2 years, 7 months. Right?
So excuse 2 years is understood. How come the 7 months we are calculating?
Sorry. Sorry. It's not 7. What am I doing? Your third year cash flow is 80, not 30. Right? So 2 years, 4 months. Let me round it up a bit. About 2 years, 5 months. How you get it is now at the end of the second year, right? You're short of how much? At the end of the second year, you're short of
30.
30.
30.
Yeah. And during the third year, how much are you getting? Inflow?
50.
60.
No. Third year, you're getting 80, no?
80.
See, yeah, third year, your cash inflow is 80, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what you do is you assume that throughout the year, you get the 80 equally. Every month, you get equal amount. And the total cash flow is 80. And that's an assumption that you make. All right. So how long does it take to recover 30 out of 80? If you're getting 80, it takes you 5 months to recover 30. Okay. Because over a period of 12 months, you're getting 80. That means every month you get 80 divided by 12, 6.67. Okay. Let me work it the other way around. You get a cash flow of 80 over a period of 12 months. It means for every 1 rupee, it is 12 divided by 80. Yes. So you have to recover 30. That will be into 30, 4.5. Or in other words, you have to recover 80 over a period of 12 months. You get 80 over a period of 12 months. Every month you get 6.67. So to recover 30, it takes you 2.5 months or 5 months. Understood? What you need to do is you have to recover 30, right? This 30 needs to be recovered. You're getting 80 during the year into 12 months, 4.5. That's how you get the 5 months here. Good. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Shanali, you okay? All right. All good. Now, the drawback is you don't know what kind of cash flows you're getting after the third year. Right? Because when you run projects, you don't run only up to the payback. No? It has to continue beyond that, right? If you're getting cash flows of 100 or you're getting cash flows of negative cash flows, you won't know what is the impact. Because you only look at up to the payback period, not beyond that. So you can get blindsided. Eh? Any questions up to now? Shall we try this one? Again, a 3-year project. Earlier one was A, now we are doing B. So under project B, first year you are making an investment of 100. Today you are making an investment of 100. The first year you're getting cash inflows of 70. Second year you're having an inflow of 50. Third year inflow of 20. So your cumulative cash flows will come to year 0 is minus 100, year 1 minus 100 plus 70 minus 30, and year 2 minus 30 plus 50 plus 20. Right, so payback would be what? Yes, Sanjay, very good. You're breaking even between first and second year, so, right? So your payback will be 1 year. First year you're getting cash flows, you're short of 30. After the first year you're short of 30, you're getting cash flows of 50. So 1 year, 7 months. So 1.6 years, that's also correct. Yeah. You can say either 1 year, 7 months or 1.6 years. Both are correct. Eh? Any questions up to now?
Will this be tested in the exam, sir?
I can't give you a guarantee, but yes. Very likely. Yeah?
Okay.
You don't like it?
No, no.
Well, like, you'll be lucky if you get something like this, isn't it?
Yes, I never find in past papers, that's all.
Yeah, if I were the examiner, this is something that I would test.
Okay, sir.
Why, sir?
To see whether you understand the basics. Clear? Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right, so any more questions? Good. Today's session is good because I'm hearing your voices for the first time, I think. Some of you are, well, most of you are speaking today, which is good. Now, if you were to meet physically, this is what I would ideally do. I'll get all of you to talk, share your experience, share your knowledge, so that it's actually an intellectually stimulating session, right? Then you all learn, I also learn, we all learn. Otherwise, if it's just one-way traffic where only I keep talking, it gets very boring, right? So while you all learn, it's very important that I also learn. I learn from your experience. So this is how the class should actually be. It has to be interactive. Let's make it as interactive as possible. And I'm not sure whether I told you this at the beginning. Feel free to challenge me, right? We agree in this class. We agree to disagree, right? You all can disagree with me. Then only I learn. Okay. So I'm thoroughly enjoying that you all are responding. And it's been quite a while since we had physical classes. So the last time I remember was just before 2020 March. So that's almost 1.5 years, a long time. Any further questions? No questions. So either you understood everything or you understood nothing. Okay, so what are the pluses and minuses of payback?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah,
If we have done it in the other way around, that you have asked to do so in the project A, it will come the 7.2. The answer comes as,
7.2. How come?
because you said we have to assume 50 comes per year.
No. Okay, Rachani, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. Now, you might get 1.6 years, right? 1.6 years.
Yes.
0.6 is 7 months.
Likewise, we have to take.
Yeah, it comes to the same thing. So you can either say 1.6 years or 1 year, 7 months.
No, sir. I said assume as per the project A. You
Oh,
said we can assume that 50 comes for the total year. So
project
when
A, 50. Where is the 50?
the 80,
No. It's not 50, it's 80.
The amount that is 80, I think.
80 comes for the 12 months.
Yes.
So if we do the same fraction for this, 50 comes for the 12 months, assuming it will take 7.2 kind of a answer.
7.2 months. Yes, correct. Yeah, so my point is 1.6 years and 1 year, 7
Okay.
months are the
It
same.
comes with the months. Okay.
Yeah,
Sir.
yeah. Understood. Yes. 7.2 divided by 12. 7.2 divided by 12 is 0.6. So you can either say it's 1.6 years or 2 years, 7 months. Both are the same. Clear? Because every year there are 12 months. Right, so 0.6 is 12 into 0.6, 7.2. Any more questions? Yeah, so what are the pluses and minuses of payback? Pluses and minuses of payback. What do you all think? Advantages. Payback is easy to understand or difficult to understand?
Easy to understand.
Easy to understand. That means any donkey can understand, right? And also any donkey can explain, isn't it? It's easy to understand. Yes.
It has a lower risk.
Easy to understand and explain. So it's compared to?
It has a lower risk.
Yeah, compared to what? Low risk compared to? By the way, project A, right? The payback period of 2 years, 5 months means it takes 2 years and 5 months to recover your investment. Whereas B, payback is 1 year, 7 months means it takes 1 year, 7 months to recover your investment. So if you were given a choice, which one will you pick, A or B?
A.
And yeah.
B.
B.
Okay, what if the projects were independent? Which project will you pick?
B. Uh, both.
Yeah, very good. You can pick A and B, right? Because both will eventually break even. So you can pick both. And mutual exclusive, which one will you pick?
B.
Then you pick B. Reason?
It will take less time to cover the
Yeah,
investment.
to recover your investment faster. Okay. So advantage, it's easy to understand and explain. Disadvantage, it only looks at cash flows that you receive up to payback, isn't it? Oh. Beyond this, A had a cash flow of 1,000 and B had a cash flow of 1. Which one will you pick? If you're going purely by payback, you'll pick You would prefer which one?
A.
You will prefer, no, well, if you didn't, if you're going purely by payback,
B.
payback of B is faster, no? So you will pick B, but A has a cash 1,000 coming in the 4th year. B has only one. So A is more attractive. But you don't look beyond the payback period, right? Unfortunately. Only considers cash flows up to payback period. Now, these cash flows you receive not on the same year, but on over a period of time, which means it doesn't consider time value of money. Time value of money, have we all ever heard of this concept?
Yes.
Ah, very good. You remember, finally. We did it last week. So payback doesn't consider time value of money. Okay. Now to address that issue, there is a concept called discounted payback. Discounted payback, right? On the discounted payback, the only difference is you discount your cash flows. Can you remember calculating percent values? And
Yes.
under discounted cash flows, you have to calculate percent values of each of these cash flows and finally calculate what is called the net present value, the total of all present values. Right, so shall we try this? Discounted payback. Okay, so this is project A. Calculate the discounting factor, which is 1 divided by one plus 10% to the power n. And here is n. This would be 1 divided by 1 plus 10% to the power n. You calculate your discounted cash flow. Which is your cash flow into the discounting factor. Right? Now this is the different, what you do different from a normal pay bank. Calculating discounted cash flows. The next step is to calculate cumulative discounted cash flows. Cumulative discounted cash flows. Remember earlier we calculated cash flow, cumulative cash flows? Now the difference is to calculate cumulative discounted cash flows. End of year 0, you have negative 100. Then at the end of year 1, you have negative 100 plus 9. Likewise. Okay, so this is the only difference. You need to discount your cash flows. Other than that, everything is the same.
So is it possible for you to zoom the Excel?
Yeah, can. Can I share this? Let me see. You won't know. Only thing at the exam, you won't be allowed to take an Excel sheet. Andrew, last week we discussed cash flow discounting. Remember percent value calculations? Today is your first class, is it? Hello, Andrew?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, so each of these discounted cash flow is the present value. Okay, what you are given here are the future values. Cash flows are the future values. Remember present value calculation. Present value is the future value into the discounting factor, right? Andrew, you had to watch last week's lecture. Okay, so what we have done is we have calculated the present values based on the future values and the discounting factors. Now, what is your payback in this? The discounted payback, what is your payback? You break even between the second and third year. So it's 2 years. How many months? A short of 41.32. During the month, you get 60.11. About 8 months. It's about 2 years, 8 months. Yes, Andrew, just go through last week and let me know if you have any problems, right? If you get stuck, just let me know. Right. Can you calculate discounted cash flow for project B also? What would be the discounted payback for project B? Payback B would be again between the first and the second year, so it's 1 year. short of 36.36. We are getting 41.32. Near 11 months. Right now, if you observe closely, which one is longer? Payback is longer or discounted payback is longer?
Discounted payback is longer.
Discounted payback is longer. The reason is you're discounting your cash flow. So it takes longer for you to recover the investment. Right. So that is something you need to remember. Discounted payback is longer than the normal payback. Now, if the projects are independent, which one will you prefer, A or B? The independent?
Both.
Both are fine. But mutually exclusive?
B.
You go for the shorter payback. Yeah, any questions? So the benefit of discounted payback is it addresses the issue of discounting cash flows. Other than that, everything else is the same. Any questions? The next concept is called net present value, right? Very simple. What you do is you get the present value of each and every cash flow and discount them, add them up. It's called net present value, the present value of all cash flows, called net present value. Net present value is the present value of inflows minus the present value of outflows. The investment decision is based on the net present value being positive, right? If NPV is 0, that means the present value of inflows are more than present value of outflows. If that is the case, you need to invest. In case of mutually exclusive projects, you have to invest in the highest NPV. If the projects are independent, you can select everything that gives positive NPV. So let's try this example, project A, and let's do it for project B as well. Let's calculate net present value for A and B. So the net present value would be the total of all discounted cash flows. Project A has an NPV of 18. Right? Now the interpretation of this is receiving these cash flows over the next 3 years is equivalent to receiving 18.78 today. Right? So let's calculate NPV for B also. NPV of B is 19.9, is nearly 20. If A and B are independent, which one will you prefer?
B.
If they're independent,
B.
no. If they're independent, you prefer both.
Both.
Why? Positive NPV. But if mutually exclusive, reason?
Gives higher NPV.
Yeah. Okay, so any questions on that?
Are these theories practically useful? Means using these theories?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Very, very frequently used. Right. Investment appraisals are done based on net present values and internal rate of returns, which we are going to learn in a few minutes. Next one is internal rate of return, right? Shall we now do the same set of calculations at higher discount rates, right? The same calculation that we just did. Let's do it at higher discount rates. First one, our discount rate was 10%. No? Now let's assume the discount rate is 20%. Right, we did discount rate 10%. Now let's try at 20% what happens. Okay. Under IRR, you have to calculate discount rate at two different rates. You have to, you have to calculate net present value of two different discount rates. Right. So I'm using at 10% what happens, and then at 20% what happens. Now what are your observations? What happens when the discount rate increases? What happens to NPV when you increase the discount rate?
It's decreasing.
Yeah, at 10% discount rate, 10% discount rate, A has a NPV, net present value of 18. Whereas if you increase the discount rate to 20%, the NPV drops to -3. At 10%, B has a discount net NPV of 19.9. But when discounting factor or discount rate increases 20%, NPV drops to 4.6. Right? So as discount rate keeps going up, the net present value keeps dropping. That is a relationship, right? So to calculate IRR, you need to calculate discount net present values at two different discount rates. Okay. So let's write the summary at 10%. So this is the summary of our findings. A discount rate of 10%, NPV is 18.78. Discount rate of 20%, NPV minus 3.7. Then for B, discount rate 10%, NPV 19.98. Discount rate 20%, NPV is 4.63. Right. As you keep reducing the discount rate, as you keep increasing the discount rate, NPV keeps dropping. Meaning there will be a discount rate somewhere between 10 and 20, right? For A, there will be a discount rate between 10 and 20, where the NPV will become 0. Now that is the internal rate of return. It is the discount rate at which net present value is 0. Okay. How do we find that? The discount rate at which net present value is 0. We make a small assumption and assume that the change in the net present value when discount rate keeps changing is a linear function, right? Remember in grade 2, we did the equation of a straight line, y equals mx. This calculation is based on the same concept, right? Slope of m is equal to y by x. Right. So what you have to do is y is minus 3.7. This is the equation of a straight line. divided by sorry. Okay, so what happens is we need to find the discount rate at which NPV is 0. So let's say that is discount rate is R, NPV is 0. That is what we need to find. Okay. So 0 minus 3.7 divided by and minus 10%. Sorry, divided by R minus 20%. Right. I'm just calculating the slope. B equal to 0 minus, sorry, it's 18.78 minus 3.7 divided by 10% minus 20%. Right, so R will be equal to Sorry, I'm also doing on Excel for the first time, so let pardon me. Prefer to have done this on the board. So we get 18.35 finally. And that's for A. And then for B, we need to find the discount rate at which NPV is 0. Right, so it's the tangent of the slope is 0 minus 4.63 divided by R minus 20% equal to 19.98 minus 4.63 divided by 10% minus 20%. And so IRR of B comes to 23%. A is 18.3. Now, IRR is the internal rate of return. It's a rate of return, right? So when it comes to return, you always go for the higher return. Okay. Which means in this case, you have to, if the projects are independent, if they're independent, you go for the project, whatever the project, which gives you a return above your cost of capital, which is in this case 10%. Right? Your cost of capital is 10%, so you can go for both A and B. But if you assume they are mutually exclusive, then you can only go with B, because B has the highest IRR, right? Project with the highest IRR. Okay. So that's slightly complicated. Unlikely it will get tested at the exam, but you need to understand this. Right? This is what you should know. IRR is the discount rate at which net present value is 0. Right? And to make a decision, your cost of capital should be less than the IRR. If the cost of capital is less than IRR, you invest. Right? If the cost of capital is more than IRR, you don't invest, because remember, IRR is the rate of return. The return should be more than the cost for the project to be viable. Anything less, you don't invest. Also, if you're given mutually exclusive projects, go for the highest IRR, because you always invest in the higher return. Internal rate of return, you need to invest if IRR is greater than the cost of capital. In this case, the rate of return exceeds the cost, right? So return should be more than the cost for the project to be viable. So if the average cost is at 10% and return is 15%, it's profitable, so you invest. If independent projects, invest for as long as IRR is more than the cost. But mutual exclusive project, invest in the one that gives the highest IRR. Right, I was reading of this. Reinvestment rate assumptions. NPV assumes that cash flows are being reinvested at weighted average cost of capital. IRR assumes that reinvestment occurs at IRR, right? So whatever you reinvest either happens at the WACC or IRR. NPV assumption is more suited in cases where projects are mutually exclusive. Then the next concept is modified IRR. Now the problem with IRR, sorry, you have any questions up to now? Yeah, I will share the Excel sheet. I will share the Excel with you all. Right. And before we get to modified IRR, let's look at cash flow patterns. Like cash flow patterns, there are two types of cash flows. One is normal cash flow, other one is non-normal. Now, normal is a cash flow where you initially have a investment. That means an outflow. Then the outflow is followed by several inflows, a series of inflows. Whereas non-normal is where outflow and inflow keep interchanging. Right? You get alternate cash flows, some outflows, some inflows, very unpredictable. That's called non-normal cash flows. Normal cash flows is where initial outflow is followed by cash inflows, right? Or initial inflow is followed by cash outflows. So they don't alternate. If you have an initial outflow, then it's followed by a series of inflows. Or if you have initial inflows, then it's followed by a series of outflows. But they don't alternate. Inflows and outflows do not alternate. Non-normal cash flows is where inflows and outflows alternate, right? Inflows and outflows keep changing in non-normal cash flows. Cost may have to be incurred to terminate the projects. For example, if there is a termination cost involved, right? You have to remove or disassemble a plant, manufacturing plant. That's an outflow. Then you might have non-normal cash flows, right? It will look like this. Now, these are the years 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are years. And then you have cash flows in each of the years. So if year 0 is outflow, then followed by series of inflows, it's a normal cash flow. But if year 0 is outflow followed by a series of inflows and then outflow, it's non-normal. Series of outflows followed by series of inflows, normal. Series of inflows followed by series of outflows, normal. Outflow followed by inflows followed by outflow, again inflow, then outflow is non-normal, right? So the problem is if cash flows are non-normal, you will have more than one IRR. I repeat, if cash flows are non-normal, you will have more than one IRR. Okay. Now, if you take this example, year 0, you have initial outflow of 800. Then year 1, inflow 5,000. Year 2, outflow 5,000. Right. So this is non-normal cash flows because you have outflow followed by inflow and then another outflow. It's called a non-normal cash flow. Right. Now for this project, if the cost of capital is 10%, your NPV will come as 386, but you won't get IRR. The reason is the cash flows are non-normal. Right? You'll get, in fact, multiple IRRs, two IRRs, IRR at 25% and a second IRR at 40%. Right? So if that is the case, IRR becomes meaningless, nonsensical. We got IRR as error because there are two IRRs, non-normal cash flows, two signs changes as explained in this picture, right? If the cash flows are non-normal, you have multiple IRR, which is a problem. So to address that problem, we use modified IRR. Okay. Remember, if cash flows are non-normal, you have to use modified IRR. IRR works only if cash flows are normal. But NPV works either way, whether cash flows are normal or non-normal, doesn't matter, NPV will work. IRR will not work, right? So if in an MCQ, you get a question where you have non-normal cash flows, which method is more preferable? And you have several answers. If you have NPV as well as IRR, you should always pick NPV and not IRR, because IRR becomes nonsensical if cash flows are non-normal, right? The next area is on modified IRR, right? Which is an extension of IRR. Since we have run out of time, let us wind up with this, and we will meet next week. So until such time, just stay safe. I will see you all next week.